last time a number of questions about the causal bodies. Now, of course, you have to have done Module 4 to know about this question. So who's done Module 4 or more here? Put your hand up. Let's see. Okay. So if you go to the internet or have studied theosophical teachings, the theosophists like Blavatsky and any of those people, they speak a lot, and there's a whole technology around the higher bodies. Alice Bailey writes about it a lot. And from a life alignment perspective, we try to keep this very simple because it's a very complex matter. And we're now reaching from the bubble of our aura, as you understand, the etheric, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies have a certain field that comprise our auric field. The moment we move into causal bodies, we're moving, simply put, into our soul and the essence of our spirit, which is interconnected with all that is, and the universal spirit, the universal consciousness, which we might call Buddhic or Christ consciousness. And so we're extending our reality, and that is the reality, into universal mind. And as you know from, even though that you might have studied just Module 2, Module 3, we are always tapping into the universal mind, the higher mind. You could call it the higher self or soul, but the soul is an entity. A soul has individuality. The soul incarnates from life to life, carries with it certain memory. So we have soul memory. In Module 6, we learn about even soul programs that we carry from incarnation to incarnation. And that's the evolution of the soul, which I think we're all familiar about, otherwise we wouldn't be in this work. But beyond that, we go to the universal spirit, the soul, or the oversoul that is connected to all that, and to the Akasha, the Akashic records. That's the library of memory that stores all memory from all time, from collective consciousness, and the higher realms of Buddhic consciousness or Christ consciousness. So one of the questions from Jane, see you there, Jane, somewhere, is around what memories do these bodies hold? So when we are doing a balance, okay, we are actually accessing whatever is needed. Of course, it could be family patterns, it could be just from our higher self, and it could be patterns that we have received. It's like a trickle-down effect from universal events along the way, from Atlantis, from Lemuria, from other times in our collective history. And of course, our soul may have been there. So our soul would, at causal 1, causal 2, would have those memories. But then there's something higher as well, which is universal. It goes beyond this earth. It goes beyond even the memories of creation, memories of all of life from the beginning of time, whether it's the Big Bang or anything else. So we are a collection, our bodies, our consciousness is a collection of memories at different frequencies. Now, the higher the balances go, because you're working with this already in module 2, probably, but the higher the balances go, the more access we have to these higher memories that are more universal memories. The purpose, one of the purposes of life alignment, is to align with life. Now, what is life? Life, of course, is physical life as we see it on the planet, nature, people, but life universally, the life force that runs through the universe, what we might call 0-point energy, which is frequency of, it's an energy that is throughout the universe. It's not just empty. There's what we call a 0 point. It's a point of singularity. So it simply, if we could keep it simple from a life alignment perspective, so we don't get involved with theosophical beliefs and dogmas, we just call it causal 1, causal 2, causal 3. But for all of us, this is very important because, as we know, when we do a balance, the ripple effect goes out into the cosmos. And it doesn't matter where on the planet or where in the universe we are putting some sort of stimulus in the cosmic flow, the cosmic sea of consciousness. And so everything we do, every balance we do, and that really is one of the main purposes. Now, in life alignment, this is all governed and guided by an enormous field of beings that I'm sure we feel when we work. I'm sure we're feeling now. These are light beings that are on other dimensions of consciousness, that have an awareness of what's happening at all levels of consciousness, and have an agenda, possibly. It might not be an agenda as we understand it, but their intention is to bring light into the universe, to bring light on the planet, in co-creation with, as we're talking about the planet, in co-creation with human beings. So the more we raise our consciousness to understanding that there is a purpose for all of this. This is not just a technique we learn to know points and do technique and to help people's troubles and all of that stuff. Is that we are constantly serving the planet. Bit of noise there. And the sooner we get into that, we don't get to that necessarily in body spin or module 1, but actually one can. The sooner we get into that sensing, and it's not something somebody can tell you that, I'm saying this in words, but it has to become your truth. You have to feel the depth of purpose, a sense of purpose, that yes, you are serving something much, much, much higher than the person that's lying on the table or the group that you're working with. But spirit, this field, will utilize every opportunity we have, our own spiritual practices that we have, that creates a shift in the field of consciousness. The moment we shift and facilitate transformation in whatever form it takes, that transformational process literally goes out into the universe. Because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Is changing. We are change agents. And the moment we make a change in the 0-point field, it literally transmits across the universe or the galaxy or whatever you want to call it, however far you can take your mind. And so we are constantly having an impact on that field. So, Ursula, you asked the question, how do you deal with a negative environment of fear, people that, would sue you, or fearful and negative? By constantly making a shift in your own consciousness. And it could be in meditation, it could be with whatever techniques you know. And yes, doing deliberate balances on using the environment as your intention, as the field, and constantly putting out light. And what you may find, because I think many of us work in this way, we're in environments that are very, very skeptical, very negative, and that's everywhere. Ursula, you seem to be in an environment that is extremely stuck. So take that, do long distance balances, and you will find a crack somewhere, somebody that will resonate with you. And if you can, find one person in your environment that you now have a collective field with, and the two of you are creating a unified field that is representing that environment. Because actually that's what we're about, is being in these places. We're not going to necessarily find just places where everyone's enlightened. And if you're in Australia, you don't necessarily have to go to Byron Bay or somewhere like that, or Shasta. And, we meant to be, and of course you can do it from wherever you are, but we are meant to be putting light into those areas of stuckness. I'm not saying it's dark, because they may have their own light, but they may just be very, very earthbound. Nothing wrong with that. Many people are that way. But something that will open up consciousness. And I'd say do balances on yourself. Have that as an intention. And just do balances on yourself that make a shift. And that's important. Of course, daily meditations is wonderful. Breathing is wonderful. Anything you can do to bring peace and calm into your being is going to have an impact. But more so is when you shift a part of your consciousness, because you're there, because there's a part in your own being, in your own experience, life experience, that is a mirror or a reflection of that external environment. Do you understand that? So the thing is not to resist it, give thanks for it. Thank you for placing me in this place. I am a light worker, and I've come to bring light into this environment. Does that answer your question? You okay?
Yes, I realized it's very important to transmit my light, to connect with people, which I'm doing, and to do my own work, because it's there is a lot of fear that is coming up. Fear I will be sued by the medical association, fear that I will be involved in cults. There's something there which is about, yes, I'm a light worker, and this is bringing up some fear. So I will work on that, certainly.
So, Ursula, work on your own fear.
Yeah.
You've had some of that, right?
Yes.
So doesn't the universe beautifully reflect our unconsciousness? So yes, we've got to work between balances. And by the way, if you don't work between balances, everyone you invite to do a balance will bring up fear for you, because you haven't done your own work. Do you understand what I'm saying? So let us do the work on a regular basis relative to these aspects of consciousness, with an acknowledgement that, yes, they are a mirror for my fear. Right? All right. So I think we've touched on causal body. Any other questions around causal bodies, whether you've done module 4 or not? Jane, the memories that are held are memories, whether they're universal memories, they're at different frequencies. they are passed on in the DNA, as you say, and encoded in the subtle bodies. So it's a trickle effect from the higher dimensions down to the more condensed, coarser dimensions. Margaret, I saw you. Where are you, Margaret? You have a question somewhere there. I had a balance including many parts and body points. I wonder if that really possible. Well, before we go into it, yes, you can have many body points, right? Many of us do get several body points, but this one tends to get a little complicated. The priority point was ligaments. The parts was the chest, down the legs, backside of the body, the right arm and hand. Now, I want to say something about that, and that's for people that are working with body parts. If you have a particular part, you all understand what I'm talking about. It could be a muscle, a bone, a part where there's a ligament. It's very unusual that you have half the body unless you have the body as a whole. If there is a particular part, it will be quite focused. In other words, it's the part that has that memory. And there's nothing to say. If you've gone through a massive trauma, you've gone through a car accident, and you're working with connective tissue or muscles, it could be that most of your body is involved, and then generally that will come up as body as a whole. So your ligaments parts was chest, down legs, backside of the body, right arm and hand. And yes, it could be. But I would ask, is there anything of those parts that is the priority part, the focus? Because you have the subcomplex before is the vagina, and other body points, virus, ascending colostructural system. So it does look as if this has gone out a little too far. I would simplify. Let's say vagina was, sorry, is this too private to talk about, Margaret? Can I talk about this? Where are you? Mute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying. Ooh.
Is anyone you balance on this Zoom call?
It's okay, you can talk about it.
Okay, so let's say somebody had sexual abuse at some point in their lives, okay, which created immense stress throughout the body. So now we are mixing things up here because ligaments is parts. There is no subcomplex before ligaments. Do you understand that? If you've got ligaments, what would you look for? Parts that you put into the folder called ligaments. So this is not a priority that has a subcomplex before. Do you understand that? That doesn't make sense. However, everything makes sense in life alignment. So it comes up and maybe in a different order, but it may be indicating that this individual might have had trauma, which is all the way around the body. The body went into trauma, maybe post-traumatic stress disorder, and it affected all parts of the body. Generally, that would come up as either a single part or two connected, or the body as a whole. Now, the other thing you've got is subcomplex after. Now, we don't want to go into everybody's balances here and sort it out, but I think it's a good example. Sciatic nerve is the subcomplex after. Sciatic nerve is not part of subcomplex after, right? Thumbs up. What is subcomplex after? Overactive, underactive, deficiency, excess. It's not a part. So I think it would be good to connect with somebody that you've been learning with Cherry. Go over that process. But it's thank you for bringing this up, because it's good to be able to clarify. Then, of course, you had the emotions, and said, I found it a bit crazy having so much, but I'm sure it was a good balance. Was it a good balance? Yes? And they felt better. You know, that's the beauty of life alignment. Let's put it this way. I'm not giving everybody this license, but so that you can all go crazy. But things come up that are not always logical, right? And in different orders and in different ways. And of course, your higher self or the life alignment guides that you might have, your team, are having a giggle, hopefully a giggle rather than a nervous breakdown, but they're having a bit of a giggle and saying, so what? It's happening despite the lack of order. And what's facilitating the healing? Let's be clear. This question is a good one. What really does the healing? Okay, we are puppets that are doing the technique and in the right order, hopefully. And really, it is the presence that is with us and moves through us that is facilitating the body healing itself. That's what eventually does the healing. But it is the presence that really holds the balance. Would you agree with me? And we should all be invoking that presence. Because if we're not, we're just doing some technical process. And yes, it will work. But as we are invoking a presence right now, who's feeling an energy of presence right now at this stage? Put your hands up. All right. And if you're not, open yourself to it, because I'm just talking, again, as a puppet, and hoping that this presence will connect with you. So we can do crazy things, preferably not, but the presence will hold the space, provide the current of love, of energy that will help the body do its own healing. All right, Margaret? So I would really clarify that process, clarify the subcomplex before, which we now call dominance, some of us, and subcomplex afterwards. Okay? Find out which are the points for subcomplex after, and clarify the parts. Ask for priority parts. Okay? Does that answer your question, Margaret? Good, thank you. Thumbs up. Lynn, I don't know if you're here. I've got different screens, so I can't see everybody. Any guidance on appropriate timing for doing a residue balance? Could we do it for a baby after the inoculations to mitigate the situation? Really good questions for all of us, because residue is right at the beginning, module 1. Why did it come up so early in the process? Because I was working with a lot of doctors, naturopaths in early days. We were working with things like inoculations and different conditions at that time. The residue balance is an excellent balance to do for a child that has had vaccinations, or an adult that has had vaccinations. And I'll give you a story. When I first came to South Africa, I was doing a workshop in a kinesiological center, and the manager of the center said, please, could you work on my child who had a vaccination and within a couple of days developed epilepsy, very severe epilepsy, and is on heavy medication. And I said, yes, sure, bring the hair. And we did a balance during one of the breaks. One of the priorities, of course, was on the mother. And then residue came up for this child. And we tracked, because the child was still having episodes of epilepsy despite whatever medication they were giving. And within a couple of hours, the episodes slowed down. Within a few days, there were no more episodes of epileptic fits. And it was really a wonderful demonstration to me of how residue works. Any of you had experience with residue? Have you worked with it? Jerry, in what circumstance? Malin, do you want to say a word, Jerry?
A number of years ago, I had someone who had the residue balance, and actually immediately afterwards, or actually through the balance, she started feeling really nauseous. And in our old house, we had a toilet right there, and she ran to the loo, threw up, and really she had to lie down on the bed for a couple of hours. Luckily, I didn't have a client afterwards, and I just put her on the couch, and she went home. She slept for 24 hours, and she woke up and she said she just felt completely different. So the reaction was that, of getting it out her body. And she said, that it had affected her throughout her whole life. She had been aware of, her immune system was very weak. She used to pick up things really easily. So it was quite a balance. I mean, she just kept on throwing up and then ending up sleeping. So.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like you to explore, because we are being vaccinated in some countries all the time, whether you know it or not, by what comes down from the skies. We have, what are the metals in vaccinations? You've got aluminum, right? Well, aluminium. You've got mercury, you've got other things. Well, we have aluminum, strontium, barium dropping down through the atmosphere from chemtrails. All familiar with that? Lucky. Anyone want to get away from chemtrails, come down to Cape Town, to South Africa? Don't have any here. But in a sense, we are being vaccinated at some level or another, or toxified. It's not exactly a vaccination, but residue is good for accessing a deep-seated just mute, please. So check it out. You may not ever have used residue because it may be out of your consciousness, but check out. I'm not telling you that this is so, but I would love you to check out and give me feedback, because it goes into the tissue, it goes into the cell, and has an effect, not a positive effect. And that takes us also to the question that about Carla asked about dementia, because dementia is very influenced by the chemicals that are dropping onto this planet. And as you know, aluminium has an effect on our brain, which is causing a lot of dementia and Alzheimer's. So beyond doing a heavy metal balance, if you're in module 4, or detoxification, use residue. And of course, we also work with the small generator on the liver, which helps to protect the liver. But the residue actually goes into the cell and helps to release what residue there is. So bring that in and just experiment. Ask those of you that are living in an area where there are chemtrails, and there are lots in Europe and in England. Anyone put up their hand? Do you see chemtrails in Australia? Arlene, Tess? Yeah, there are lots. All right. Okay. So
lots of chemtrails here, Jeff, and that actually explains why I'm doing residue balances as often as I am, because I was thinking this is odd. But there's a lot of enforcement around vaccinations here. They're really working quite hard to push vaccinations at every level. and you have to be vaccinated to go to school, you have to be vaccinated to do certain jobs and things like that, and there's a lot of chemtrails. So I do see residue balancing coming up a lot.
That's excellent. Well, there we go. So please check that out. And of course, vaccinations now have come in very, very strongly. They're pushing it in many countries. I know in Italy, who's there from Italy? Alberta, you may know something. Paola, pushing vaccination as well. So use residue. Just say, do we have permission? Because it may not have come up as a priority for you because it's out of your consciousness. So begin to use that. Arlene, you asked about the link between the vortex mat and the seat and how they work together. And what about the role of fear in our lives? And then you had another part of your question. So I don't know how many of you are using the mat, the vortex mat. Who's using the mat? All right. So anyone using the mat and the seat together? One or two. Okay, so the mat, as you know, whatever it does, I'm sure you've felt it, but when you're using the seat, when the practitioner is using a seat with a mat, they speak to each other. There is a synergistic effect between the mat and the seat, and they were designed that way. Of course, the seat can be used anywhere, but when the two are together, who has felt that combination of energy that has really amplified? Anybody? Tess, what have you found?
I've noticed a sense of, well, there is that synergy, but it feels like some circle of protection or some circle of resonance that's created when I'm sitting in the seat and using the mat.
Okay, so the seat has amplified that field.
Yeah, I feel much more connected to the client at a higher level as well.
Right.
And I feel more
yeah, because what the qualities of the seat are: number one, protection. So if you're in an aeroplane, a car, etc., a computer, so you've got your protective element, you've got your grounding element, so keeping you grounded, earthed, and then you've got certain cards that help to open a channel for receiving. So, for instance, it's fantastic for meditation because you've got the opening, the receiving, and the grounding, and of course, protection. So when you're sitting with a client, it is helping to open your connection with your guidance, with whatever field is there. So, and what it's doing, it's creating a combined field with you and your client more effectively. So I would suggest, if you have the seat, that you just attempt to use it or borrow a seat, see what it feels like. Don't just buy into my words. But I find the combination really effective. The mat really is a transmission pad, if you might call it, for emanating whatever shift occurs on the mat out into the atmosphere, out into the field. We just did some book launches here with Philippa in South Africa in 3 different cities on a new book. And I introduced the mat and I had it out at lunchtime and tea breaks. And literally there were lineups of people wanting to lie on the mat. Everyone felt bad, so they only lay on there for a minute or so. But it was building within the whole group. People at the end of the line were beginning to feel the effect of those on the table. And so it's a new business you could open up. You could just put a mat out and have a long, long line of people and just change the whole field. By the time the person at the back comes, they don't need it anymore. So it's a fantastic effect because it's a transmitter. So when you're working on somebody, particularly with field, and you facilitate change in a client, that change always is transmitted. But effectively, this seems to have, much wider effect. All right. So the other question you had, if somebody had time for one simple practice a day that he could do to deepen his connection with spirit or to heal, what would that be? I'm sure that's different for all of us. Great question, Arlene, because your question indicates the need to practice on a daily basis, not just to wait for, somebody pleased to come to your table so you can feel great because you're going downhill quickly and you need someone to save you. That's what happens, right? When we work with someone, we are uplifted. So preferably to come to the table in that state because we are practicing. And I think that practice is moment by moment, working with even our 7 steps of welcoming every situation, being grateful, emanating love, thankfulness, all of that. I think if we just work with thankfulness. But I think from a physiological perspective, yes, meditation you can do, but I would say just using the breath. First of all, the breath helps to stimulate the vagus nerve, which helps to calm everything down and put out a field of calm into the atmosphere, which of course affects other people. So yes, a meditative technique with breathing, gentle breathing, whatever breathing technique you choose. We haven't created a breathing technique or a meditation technique for life alignment. Maybe we need to, because everyone chooses what is right for them. But I'd say just calm breathing, connecting with your body. So doing a body scan, becoming present, maybe using the presence card, but going through your feet, your legs, your knees, your hips, and the whole body, just scanning the body, being present. And of course, doing better balances on oneself. And really, that process, that practice, should be a moment-by-moment practice that we experience every single moment. That there is this place of being that we stay in because of the work we do, that is just thankful, is calm, centered, and expansive, that is constantly emanating light. So whatever will bring you into your center, whatever will emanate light, and of course, connection with our team and with source and with divine energy. So thank you, Arlene, for that question. By the way, I'd love to chat after this Zoom call. Let's do that. I think we've sort of covered the questions and time to go into a meditative process. So does anyone else have any questions? Share anything dramatic happening in your world? No? Okay. So let's, you ready to go into a meditation? Oops. Page 3, no one's on video. Before we go into a meditation, I'd like to know if during this 40 minutes you're feeling already connected. Because that's the key. It's not doing the balance so that we feel connected. It's being connected so we can do the balance. Do you understand that?
Can I just say I went to get the seat and I feel more connected having brought that in straight away.
Oh, wonderful. Can you transmit that to all of us, Diana?
No problem.
Seat of consciousness. It's called the seat of consciousness. All right. So while I'm looking for words, let's just go into a deeply peaceful place and breathe. All right. So the two positive words, so we could meditate on them for a few moments, are release and generosity. So give it some thought as to what those words mean, because it could mean a number of things. It could be releasing generosity or releasing whatever is blocking generosity. Or being generous in order to release. It could be a number of things, but the primary word is release. So that sort of gives you some sense of what those two might mean. And I think it's really what we've been talking about. It's releasing, being generous with our light and the peaceful energy that we connect to. So it's not hoarding it for ourselves, and this is for me in my little bubble, I'm meditating, but it's having the generosity of spirit as we access our connection, so that this is for the good of all human beings around the planet and beyond. So the blocking is just the word postpone. Postponing. Well, first need it for myself when we know that's very important. First have to take care of yourself, but maybe we postpone the release of that outwards. That could be one of the meanings of postpone, or it could be we're constantly postponing so we don't even get to that. For whom is this making sense? Okay. And really what it's saying is to us now, I think, don't wait, don't postpone until you feel it and whatever. Let us do it now. From this collective field that we create now, let's extend with tremendous generosity the substance of our being, the love, the light, out into the world. And it is now. And because we are capable now, the postponing is attached to, I'm not there yet, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, all of that, all of those excuses. So we are light beings, and we can do that now. So let's, from this collective field that we have, put out, rather than going just within oneself, which of course we need to do, but being conscious of emanating this out. So let us sense and connect with the field of light and love that is surrounding us and connecting us. And connecting with an enormous field of consciousness that is supporting this endeavor. So we're doing it between ourselves and together with abundant energy that comes from the team of beings. And within this field, each one of us feel that still point within us. A field of compassion, of love, of harmony, of peace. That is a very powerful antidote for what is happening on the planet. So let us imagine between ourselves and all the countries an enormous field of light. And through this co-creative endeavor, enables us to emanate this across the globe and the solar system and the galaxy now. Transmitting this to all those that are able to receive the signal. And to surround those that are not yet ready to receive it. Tremendous sense of gratitude for the enormous privilege of holding the life. And at the same time, let us sense the deeper, more expanded purpose of the field of consciousness that is guiding this work and us, whatever work we do. To be a conduit, to serve the planet and the universe. A tremendous privilege, joy, and the enormous joy of being connected one with each other, so that we do not do this alone. So each of us becomes a point of light, then our world becomes a blessing to our world. Because of our willingness to constantly come into greater alignment. With life, our souls, universal soul. Deep gratitude to our own soul for bringing us to this point. Deep gratitude for ourselves, for being ready to turn up and make this choice. So we can make a choice to hold this energy, hold this space throughout the day and the days to come. To be change makers. So let's take a few moments. When you're ready, open your eyes and let's connect with each other. Go through the screens and feel each other. Lots of people haven't put on their video. Just the names. Enough. So sending so much love. Let's carry this enormous field of love around with us throughout the day. Blow people out completely. They won't know what's happening.
Thank Jeff. It's amazing balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Joy, joy, joy to be together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. It was beautiful.
Stronger than ever.
Mm?
Stronger than ever.
You're all so beautiful. And I appreciate those in UK and Europe getting up early. Hope it was worth it.
Definitely was worth it. Thank you, Jeff.
What's around your neck there, Diana?
Polo neck. It's cold.
Okay. So
Love from Italy. Lots of love from Italy.
I send you lots of light from Cape Town. It is hot, gorgeous, sunny. Hasn't got water, but it's beautiful.
I'm very happy for you.
Lots of love, guys. We'll see you next time.
Love to you. Bye.
Love
Bye.
you all. Ciao, ciao.